everyone, Pam Gregory, astrologer. I'm going to be speaking to you today about the first half of August and the new moon that we have coming up in Leo right at the beginning of the month. But just to remind us all that the intensity of the eclipses that we felt in July, they weren't just for one day or 1 month. Their influence actually spreads over the following 6 months, over the upcoming 6 months. So we're still very much under their influence, and therefore you could have many manifestations of those eclipses still happening. And if you understand the symbolism and where they're falling in your chart, you can easily identify those. So they will lead us into the very powerful eclipses in December and January, and of course the big Saturn-Pluto conjunction next January that so many astrologers are talking about. But now let's talk about the new moon. The new moon actually happens on the 31st of July, happens in parts of the world such as America, Canada, at 8:11 p.m. Pacific, and it happens on the next day, the 1st of August, at 4:11 a.m. UK time. Happens at 8 degrees 36 minutes of Leo. So see where this falls in your chart, because this is a new beginning and it's a perfect time to set a new intention for whatever you want to manifest in your life. So see where that 8 degrees of Leo falls. Is it in your 10th house of career? Do you want a new job? Is it in your 11th house of friendships, and do you want to develop new networks? Set a clear intention for that. So your intention is not only conditioned by the quality of the symbolism that I'm going to be talking about, which is all about Leo, it's also where it falls in your chart in that context. So we have our ongoing backdrop of the Jupiter-Neptune square, which we've had running for a long time and will run until October of this year. And this is really about spiritual inspiration and a big vision. I've talked about that in great detail in previous videos, so you can check those out. We've also got our very long-running conjunction of Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node in Capricorn, and that conjunction is going to continue, certainly the Saturn-Pluto part of it, up until the early months of next year. And I'm going to talk about this because it's part of a configuration at this new moon. Because with that Capricorn grouping, we have Eris, the asteroid of discord, squaring from 24th of Aries, squaring Saturn and Pluto. So Eris is very similar to Uranus in its symbolism. It's about revolutionary activity, it's about protest, it's about riot. It creates discord in order to raise either the individual or the society to a higher state of being. So a very clear example of this has been the Hong Kong protests. People on the street, very strong protests, but they run up against, in this square, the Saturn-Pluto in Capricorn, top-down law and order authority. They've come a long way, actually, and the government has made some concessions, but that's been the clash, that's been the conflict. In addition, we also have Mercury, stationary, so it's strong, at 23 of Cancer. So Mercury is actually forming a T-square to the grouping in Capricorn and Eris in Aries. Now, this is calling for something quite different, because in Cancer, this is related to motherhood, children, compassion, empathy, protection for the vulnerable. So Mercury in Capricorn is actually a call for that, to weave that into the structures of society, or to have those issues recognised in a bigger way in society. Having compassion for people who are more vulnerable, less well off than certainly the top echelons. But again, meeting in that opposition, this current social structure that we have of top-down law and order, and whether that's possible. And as I've spoken at length before, the fact that the South Node is in Capricorn, that is power in the old way, the way we're used to using power in society. Pluto moving through any sign deconstructs the symbolism of that sign before it reconstructs just like a tree falling, dying, falling, rotting in a wood, and then forming new life from the soil that comes from that. That is the process of Pluto. So Pluto is at the moment deconstructing power systems. Therefore, we should expect to see governments in countries being dysfunctional, not working properly, perhaps being in chaos. That is the process we should expect. So, but where is the North Node for the next year? Now and for the next year, the North Node is in Cancer, and Mercury is conjunct that. So this is a very, very important call, because North Node is our future collective potential, if you like, but it's what we've got to work towards, which is this compassion, this empathy for the more vulnerable, the less well off in society. It's very interesting that Mercury is stationary at this new moon, which makes it very strong. The next day, the 2nd of August, it moves on to become direct at 24 of Cancer. Now, I'm going to talk about this a little later in the video. 24 of Cancer, here we go again, 24 of the cardinals. These degrees are being activated again and again. We've just had the lunar eclipse at 24 of Capricorn. We've got Mercury now moving direct at 24 of Cancer. This is exactly on the Mercury of the US chart. So it's the country's Mercury, which is connected to things like trade and media and the press. If we look at the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto in January, that's at 22 of Capricorn. And in March, April, there'll be a big conjunction between Jupiter and Pluto at 24 of Capricorn. So we're getting these degrees being repeatedly activated. So if you personally in your chart have anything between 22, 26 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or if you have angles, if you have your natal nodal axis, very importantly, round about those degrees, your soul's growth, if it's your natal nodal axis, is going to be very activated every time we have a planet or an eclipse or whatever happening at those degrees. So it's remarkable how repeatedly these are being aspected. Okay, let's talk about the symbolism of Leo now. Leo is big heart energy. It's ruled by the sun. It's heart energy and it's love. And what emphasizes that even more is Venus at 4 of Leo is conjunct the sun and moon at 8 degrees 36. Sun and moon are always together at a new moon. So this is a really big, clear message of love, heart energy. Beam it out to the world. We also have Mars at 19 of Leo. Can you be a warrior for love? So in this respect, ask, are you broadcasting enough love in your life? And just remember, I'm always talking about frequency. So remember that whatever frequency we send out to the world, we're broadcasting consciously or unconsciously. It's like entrainment in quantum physics. It's just a frequency match. The universe is just a mirror. Whatever we put out, we get it back from the universe. So if you want more love in your life, broadcast love. Broadcast whatever you're lacking to get that back. So instead of just thinking about it 10 minutes a day, can that become our default frequency, 24/7? We are living in love. Can you broadcast it more widely? Can you broadcast it more loudly? Mars in Leo, can you be a warrior for love, as I hope I'm being here? So heart energy and love are very strong. And this is really quite a marked shift from July. There are two big shifts in July. This one I'm going to talk about now, the other in a moment. But in July, we had almost like a tug of war or a seesaw. A lot of the faster moving planets were in Cancer. The slower moving planets, which stay there long term, are in Capricorn. But now, those faster moving planets, apart from Mercury, which I've just talked about, have moved into Leo. Mars was already there. Now we have Mars, and now we have the Sun, Moon, and Venus too. So we've moved from cardinal water to fixed fire. Very different energy, and it's a more upbeat, social party-loving energy as well that can serve us very well despite the overlying intensity of the eclipses and that heavy conjunction of grouping of planets in Capricorn. So heart energy and love, big theme here. Second big theme is creativity, because Leo par excellence is the sign of creativity. It's about beauty, it's about colour, particularly with Leo being, with Venus being in Leo too. It's about big beauty, big creativity. Leo is always about letting your light shine. This is your unique divine spark. What can you shine to the world? And the more you can shine that without any sense of ego, the better, because you then help others to shine too. I think it was Mandela who talked about this too, letting your light shine to encourage others' light to shine. What helps this sense of creativity actually is Uranus at 6 of Taurus is square to the Sun, Moon and Venus in the early degrees of Leo. So this can be great originality and innovation. It can be real uniqueness in what you're producing, whether it's in words or visuals or whatever. And Uranus can even give us this quality of, we can see beauty in ugliness where other people can't see beauty. So it can be really, really positive in that way. If Uranus at 6 of Taurus is aspecting any planets or angles in your chart, personally this can create quite a sense of restlessness, a need for freedom, don't box me in, don't want any constraints, and even perhaps seeking an alternative lifestyle. That's always the draw of Uranus. So creativity is very marked here. The other big theme for Leo is leadership, because if you think of Leo the lion, king of the jungle, there's just a natural authority, a natural leadership coming through with this. And I'm going to talk about leadership a little later in this video, but the shadow side of Leo, particularly when we have Uranus square Sun, Moon, Venus, particularly when we have Mars in Leo, is there can be an overconfidence, there can be a grandiosity, there can be a kind of I've arrived so we can start now. So it can be impulsivity, Uranus, through misjudgments because of our overconfidence or our grandiosity because we think we're right. So be aware of this in your own personal life. Be aware of it with leaders in the world, that we don't want them to take too quick actions when they've actually misjudged the situation or they feel overconfident. So that's another side of this whole Leo new moon. Now, I mentioned one shift a couple of minutes ago, that one of the shifts is the faster moving planets have broadly moved from Cancer into Leo. Another shift is in the retrograde planets, because in July we had a really heavy emphasis in retrograde planets. We had Mercury moving retrograde from the 7th of July. We also had Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, all retrograde. There's very much an emphasis on going inwards. Now, a lot of those still stay, but a couple of changes to those. Mercury, as I've mentioned, goes direct, 24 degrees of Cancer, that degree again, on the 2nd of August. However, I think there'll be quite a significant shift in energy in the middle of the month, because Mercury doesn't leave its shadow zone, I'll explain that in a moment, until the 15th. Now, planets, when they have retrograde motion, they go into what's called a shadow zone, and I will explain this with Mercury. So on the 7th of July, Mercury was at 4 of Leo, then started to go retrograde. On the 2nd of August, it will move direct at 24 of Cancer. But it won't be until the 15th of July that it moves beyond 4 degrees of Leo. It moves out of that shadow zone. So the whole retrograde phase has included up until 4 degrees of Leo. I hope I've made that clear. So see where Mercury has been falling in your chart, particularly when it's been retrograde in the late degrees of Cancer. Has there been any anything in that area of life in your chart which has been slow or dragging, or it's just taken a while to get moving, because you may find that it gathers momentum, particularly from mid-August onwards. In addition to that, on the 11th of the month, we have Jupiter, which has moved to 14 degrees 30 minutes of Sagittarius, turning stationary direct. We have Uranus on the same day at 6:36 of Taurus, moving stationary retrograde. So they're kind of moving in opposite directions. Both those planets are kind of drilling down on those degrees, 14 of Sagittarius, 6 of Taurus, all the way through the month. So again, if those are aspecting any planet angles in your chart, take note. Now, see where Jupiter, mid-degrees of Sagittarius, has been moving retrograde in your chart. Has anything been slow there? Has it been dragging? Have you been going inwards much more? Has it been in your 9th house? I mean, Jupiter in Sagittarius classically is to do with foreign matters or legal matters, but if it's in your natal 9th house as well, have you been involved in a legal issue? Maybe with a foreign property, something like that, or some foreign issue, and it's been slow. Once Jupiter starts to move direct on the 11th of the month, again, it will start to gather momentum. So round about the middle of the month, both the fact that Mercury moves out of its shadow zone on the 15th, Jupiter moves direct on the 11th, will make a difference. Could even be things that we're looking at on the world stage, which have been big legal issues perhaps. The information has been very slow to come out, and then we start to make some progress. The other thing I'd like to comment on is when planets are stationary, their symbolism is magnified. So both Jupiter and Uranus are going to have their symbolism magnified a few days either side of the 11th of the month. So this can be about sudden surprises, shocks, extreme events, high energy, impulsivity. But another layer of meaning, actually, if we look at Jupiter in Sagittarius, that's to do with long distance travel, possibly very, very long distance travel. It's connected, for instance, to space travel. Uranus is the alien, the outsider, the maverick, person who doesn't fit. Could it possibly be that round about a few days to either side of the 11th, we'll get more news about galactic events or galactic energy or something to do with space or some kind of revelation that is very important for our development? Because both of these planets are very idealistic, and they are very, well, all of the planets really in their different ways, but Jupiter, Uranus are about individuation, very much expressing your individual essence. So is there going to be something in the middle of the month that really helps you find out who you are, together with this Leo new moon right at the beginning of the month? I think the final thing I'd like to come back to is about leadership, because we're very aware that in the top-down structures of society, whether you look at governments or corporations or many other long-term big structures in society that have held the power, it's very top-down and vertical, and that's what's being challenged right now by Pluto in its very slow move through Capricorn. It won't exit Capricorn until 2024, 2025. So we are actually very powerful co-creators. We don't often think about this because we are actually co-creating the world at every moment. Our thinking, our emotional patterns are not only creating our own reality, but they're adding to the collective. And so, as we move into this new paradigm, as well as setting a new intention for your own life, can you actually set an intention for a new kind of leadership in the world? Can you set an intention for heart-based leadership, Leo, that has within it compassion and empathy for all living beings, North Node in Cancer? Dare we do that? Because if enough of us do it, and all of you listening to this video and anyone else you speak to about this idea, it really can help to pull out of the quantum soup a reality of heart-based leadership with compassion and empathy for all living beings. And how amazing a reality would that be? We are more powerful than we know. So if you don't know where any of these aspects are in your chart that I've talked about, you can very easily download a free birth chart from my website. And then if you get these 2 tutorial videos, just click on the link. You can use these for any update I ever do to actually identify where the planets are falling that I mention, where the new moons, full moons, eclipses, whatever I'm talking about are falling in your chart. And then you can understand the meaning for you, because I get many every day. What does it mean for me? Well, I can't say what it means for you because I don't know your charts. I have to know your chart because everyone's chart is unique. And so I can't say, and it's so much better for you to learn that real basic, terribly easy to learn, and then you can be empowered to start to track the astrological meaning unfolding in your own life. And that's when we start to use astrology powerfully, strategically, and really positively for our evolution. So that's a real plea from the heart for me. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been helpful for you. Any more information on my books, my tutorial videos, my very long, detailed monthly newsletter, just check out my website, samgregory.com. And thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.